Your Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to today's episode of Locked On Canucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. And thank you for making Locked On Canucks your first listen of the day. My name is Nick Bondi. You can follow me on Twitter at Nick Bondi. You can find my bylines previously at Daily Hive and Nucks Misconduct. I'm here with Lachlan Irvin. You can follow me on Twitter at Lock in the Crease. He's a Botchford Project alum. Lachlan, how are you doing today?
Doing good. Getting close to the weekend. One last preseason game tomorrow.
Long weekend.
That's right. Canadian Thanksgiving.
The best type of weekend.
The best type of weekend for sure. The best type of weekend is when one holiday lines up in the first week or something, or one day off scheduled for the Friday, and then you get the Monday off too.
The super long weekend.
The super long weekend. Those are the best. We got one last game. We got one last game with the Oilers after they played last night. Kind of an interesting game, and pretty close to under about a week. I think we're just officially a week out from the regular season now.
Yeah, the regular season starts next Wednesday against the Edmon-Ton Oilers, who the Vancouver Canucks played last night in preseason action. Obviously, the second to last preseason game for the Vancouver Canucks. One more left against the Edmon-Ton Oilers, once again, this time in Vancouver on Saturday. And it's almost over, Lachlan. The slog of the preseason, it's almost over. We're finally so close to actual, meaningful hockey. I can't wait. But first, let's talk about a bit about what happened last night against Oilers in preseason action. They lost, obviously. It was a pretty much a power play penalty kill fest for both teams. The Oilers had a ton of power plays. The Canucks had their fair share of power plays as well. I saw a stat on Twitter, and my apologies for not saving the tweet and not crediting them, but I think 30 plus shots in the game were taken on the man advantage last night. It was a lot of power plays for both teams, and obviously the Oilers had a couple of 5-on-3s as well. And I'm starting to worry if discipline is a problem for this Vancouver Canucks team. This is the second straight game where the Canucks have taken a ton of penalties and spent a lot of time on the penalty kill. Of course, maybe that's just, the preseason rust they got to work out. Maybe the refs are, calling, we've heard a lot, and we've talked about on the show, the emphasis on cross-checking that the refs are putting emphasis on in the preseason. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's a bit of preseason rust. I don't know, but I'm starting to I know it's just preseason, but it's close enough for the regular season where I think I can start to worry a bit about the discipline of this hockey team. Lachlan, what were your thoughts on last night's preseason game against the Oilers?
Well, yeah, I think you said it. I think discipline is a bit of an issue for the Canucks. It has been for a while now. They're often end up with quite a few penalty minutes on the books. The 2019-20 season was, I think, one of their few years where they'd been relatively disciplined. They hadn't been taking nearly as many penalties. And honestly, that's what happens in a way. That part of that is what happens is when your team is, say, not as fast as the other team, or you're not able to keep up with the play on another with another group. Because if you're always trailing, you're always trying to track down other players, you're always having to try and take penalties to try and slow them down. And obviously, with a team that has Connor McDavid on it, they're going to be a pretty quick, high, fast-paced team. So the Canucks just aren't there yet. They're getting better. They're clearly making moves to get a little bit younger, a little bit faster. But it's still missing in a few places. And you see that when you see a lot of penalties like in this game tonight. Now, part of that, again, was also due to the fact that, preseason, also refs cracking down on things like cross-checks and a few other things. It also has to do with Mike Smith being Mike Smith and losing his mind on
and that guy's so
thing.
Dramatic. I forgot watching that game how annoying Mike Smith is to watch sometimes.
I enjoy Mike Smith on an entertainment.
Well, that's because you're a goalie. You probably like that stuff.
Well, no, I'm not. See, here's the thing. As a goaltender, I've never been the big I'm gonna start throwing punches or being super
You're not a flopper in
aggressive.
net.
No, I was much more like Luongo. I kept it even keeled. I was very unless Dustin Bufflin got in my face. Then I lost it, but that's different. That's a little different story. It's it was definitely like a weird game, especially from two groups who are normally not the most feisty playing against one another. Like it's usually a lot less contentious, but for some reason people were just very upset the entire time. A lot of people fighting for roster spots still, I guess trying to make an impression, no matter what that impression really was. And it ended up turning into a whole Powerpuff Fest, which if we want to talk about penalty killing for the Canucks, I think their best penalty killer in that game for large portions was Yaroslav Halak. He did well. I think he looked a little slow in the early going. He looked like he was having a little bit of hard time tracking the puck, especially with his gloved hand. It was looking a little bit slow at times to react. But as the game went on, he looked a lot faster. He stopped multiple breakaway or like odd man rush opportunities in close. He did as good a job holding the Canucks in that game as you could ask from him, especially considering that he faced 42 shots. So it was a good effort from Halak. And as far as like the backup role is concerned, if that's the kind of performances you can expect from Yara Halak, I think you're pretty comfortable with where the Canucks are at goaltending wise.
Yeah, Halak was definitely one of the best players for the Vancouver Canucks last night, and it looked like it may get out of hand early when Draisaitl scored on that 5-on-3. I was thinking, oh boy, this is going to be a long night for the Canucks. But credit to them, they found a way to get back in the game. Obviously, it's still a loss, but I think if they clean up their discipline issue, I think this team has a potential, because you're not going to win many games if you're killing penalties constantly, especially if you're the Vancouver Canucks. They just don't have that penalty killing depth. I tweeted this out on the Thursday game, but it's applicable to this game. I'm sure Travis Green in the back of his mind was like, awesome. We got a lot of penalty kills. Get it all out of your system now in the preseason. I can figure out who the best penalty killers are, and we can move from there in the regular season, right? So yeah, no, the penalty killing was, for the most part, I guess, okay. Like obviously they got tons of chances on the penalty kill, but they stemmed the tide and they held the fort down somewhat. I found it interesting right off the hop that, and we're going to talk about our favorite defensive pairings or our ideal defensive pairings a bit later. And we'll talk about this guy a bit later because it was his first game, Quinn Hughes. I found it interesting right off the top. Hughes was playing with Tucker Poolman, but they were getting hard matched against Connor McDavid. Like Travis Green did not want Quinn Hughes playing against Connor McDavid.
Now, do you think that to do with Hughes so much as it was maybe say like also like Tucker Poolman not wanting Tucker Poolman matched up against McDavid because he's not a
probably
quick
both.
guy. Like he's not
probably
quick
both.
It is probably a little bit of both. I think particularly because I think in the regular season Hughes would be playing against McDavid, or he might be hard matched against McDavid, or at least a second line of like a second third line kind of thing. But I think right now it's his first preseason game. He hasn't played in a while. No reason to give him the hard minutes right out of the gate. Ease him in. There's a bunch of just maybe not just as good, but like very good Oilers forwards on the second line and the third line that you could give Hughes a little bit of an easier matchup with, not have to worry so much about, you don't have to worry about results here. It's just about easing him back into NHL action. And frankly, that's fine. Like maybe that's a bigger talking point. Yeah, if we're in the regular season and we're seeing him like being taken immediately off the ice every time McDavid steps on the ice, you're kind of then we have questions. But for now, like it's okay. He's just working on it. I think Poolman's probably not going to be playing a lot of hard minutes against McDavid in general. I think he's probably going to be on your second, third pairing regardless. And usually they're gonna more likely throw somebody probably like an OEL out there against McDavid, or Tyler Myers probably because he's got the reach. It's gonna be something like that, I think, when you get to the regular season.
Mm-hmm. And of course, from last night's game, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the Zach McEwen, Zach Kassian fight right near the end. Scary situation with Zach Kassian. Looks like he was out on the ice for quite a while, but he managed to get up under his own power, which was great to see. Now look, Lachlan, I don't mind fighting in hockey when it's a heat of the moment thing, okay? Like when two guys are battling in the corner and then they start fighting, sometimes that happens. I don't mind that. What I don't like is the stage fighting type of situation we saw last night, right? Where two guys just drop the gloves right off the face-off. I don't like that. And especially in a preseason game, right? Like, why are we fighting in a preseason game? I don't get that at all. I get it was probably due to the incident with Mike Smith a few minutes earlier. I'm sure Zach Hassan maybe is doing a guy like Zach McEwen a favor, fighting him in preseason to help him win a roster spot, right? That kind of I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine type situation. Call me a Neanderthal. I don't mind fighting in hockey in certain situations. What I don't like is stage fights like that right off a face-off, right? I think we can move past that in hockey.
Yeah, that has to go. That should have been that part. The stage fighting should have been gone a long time ago. It never does what it's supposed to. Like, the idea is, oh, it's supposed to deter or whatever. It never does that. It just causes more issues. It causes harm to the players who take part in it. I think a lot of the time, like we saw with Cassian last night, like it's such a needless reason to go and start to drop the gloves and start punching each other. Like, especially with what we know now about CTE and everything and concussions, especially to guys who are enforcers in the NHL. And personally, I'm not a huge fan of fighting in general. I've never been that kind of I've never been a big fighter guy. I kind of think maybe that's because I'm smaller and never wanted to get into a fight in the first place.
You were also a goalie.
I was also a goalie, but I also understand the heat of the moment aspect of things. Like, you see it in other sports too, where heat of the moment, something goes off. Like, that's one thing. It's the stuff that happened. The Cassian McEwen fight was so needless. It was so pointless. And yeah, it was the preseason. Like, there was absolutely nothing on the line. There was no reason to do that. And you talk about McEwen. We talked about McEwen yesterday when we were talking about Jonah Gadjevich and why wasn't McEwen on the chopping block first? And then you look at stuff like last night where he had 9.5 minutes of ice time. Technically, only about, if you actually chop down his special teams time, only about 6 in 5v5, and he had 9 penalty minutes in that time. So he completely canceled out most of the time he was on the ice by getting himself thrown into the box or getting himself kicked out of the game for fighting. And that's the kind of stuff that maybe I get that some coaches look really highly on the, oh, I can win a roster spot. Like, guys can win a roster spot by being aggressive and fighting sort of thing. I don't see how you're helping your team by getting yourself thrown out of a game. I just don't on a needless fight. I don't see how that helps you in any way.
Yeah, and with Zach McEwen, being on the bubble for a roster spot, does this help him win a roster spot? I don't know. Again, it comes down to how much Travis Green values those old school, fighting type players and that type of mentality. The Canucks have never really had a true enforcer under Zach McEwen, so under Travis Green. So if Zach McEwen is trying to become an enforcer type, I don't know if he's going to win a roster spot in general.
Yeah, Derek Dorsett might count. Do we count Derek Dorsett here, for the 2 years that he was healthy? Because he fought a lot, I think.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm talking in Travis Green's time. I mean,
okay,
yeah. So under Travis Green, have they really had that in Derek Dorsett enforcer type? I don't think so. They've never really had that type.
Oh yeah, because Dorsett played only under Willie Desjardins.
Yeah,
man, those two, the Jim Benning era is just blended together for.
Well, he's been here a while at this point. It's coming up 8 years. It's coming up 8 years in April.
Second longest tenured GM in Canucks history, only to Pat Quinn, I believe,
Yep.
Which is shocking when you look at the results. But yeah, I think Travis Green is a more nuanced coach than that. I think he he used to be a bit of a of a tough guy himself when he played in the NHL, but I also think he understands that if you're gonna be if you're gonna be the guy that's gritty and gets into fights and scraps and whatnot, you still have to be part of the solution on offense. And a guy like Zach McEwen right now doesn't scream that, especially considering, last night he had no shots on goal. He didn't have a single shot on net in the 9 minutes he played, and including 2 minutes in power play time. So like, I think Travis Green is a smart guy when it comes to that stuff. I think he knows that he can place guys who are maybe there to be a bit on the rougher side, as long as they're not a minus when it comes to trying to actually put the puck in the net.
Yeah, and one thing I think Travis Green has a lot of decisions to make surrounding is the defense pairings, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But first, a word from Get Upside. Hey, Canucks fans, this is Nick with an incredible app everyone who buys gas needs to know about, Get Upside. My listeners are making up to 25 cents for every gallon of gas every time they fill up. Just download the free Get Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now. Use promo code HOCKEY, get a bonus 25 cents per gallon on your first fill up. That's up to 50 cents cash back. Don't pay full price at the pump anymore. Get cash back using Get Upside. Just download the app for free and use promo code HOCKEY to get up to 50 cents per gallon cash back on your first tank. Some people who drive a lot are making as much as $200 to $300 a month in cash back, and there's no catch. The cash back gets added right away to your account. You can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, e-gift card from Amazon, and other brands. Just download the free Get Upside app and use promo code HOCKEY to get up to 50 cents per gallon cash back on your first tank. That's code HOCKEY. All right, Lachlan. So the Canucks have decisions to make surrounding the defense pairings because, with Travis Hamonic still not here, I think that the pairings are still up in the air. Obviously, we mentioned a bit earlier that Hughes was playing with Tucker Poolman last night in the preseason game against Oilers. I read into that a bunch. We still have a tons of decisions. Like, are we going to have an OEL Myers pairing? I don't think that's a long-term solution for the Vancouver Canucks. Who's Rathbone going to play with on that third pairing? Because I pencil him in on that third pairing left side. His partner on the right side, totally up in the air, in my opinion. So, I mean, Lachlan, what are you thinking here for the defense pairings heading into the regular season?
I'll say this. I would love to see OEL Myers for a short time. Like, not necessarily.
It would be a good chaos pairing.
Yes, it would be. If Travis Green wants to appease himself to the meme people on Canucks Twitter or the people that just cheer for chaos, he'll just put Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Tyler Myers together.
I like chaos as much as the next person, Lachlan, but I want to see wins. I don't know if we're seeing wins with. Okay. I don't know if we'll see that with OEL and Myers playing together.
Look, I've been referring to the OEL Myers pairing for a while as the black hole pairing because I feel like that's just where all defensive prowess goes to die in the void. So maybe that's probably not the best call to put them together. I think Myers right now. I think Myers is probably on the inside track to maybe end up with Quinn Hughes simply because I don't think they're a great fit together long-term either. But I think that the way the Canucks are going to look at it, they want a veteran defenseman alongside Hughes. No Travis Hamonic means that they kind of have to go to the next man up. And Tyler Myers is kind of that. You could maybe, if Luke Shen had a much better preseason, I think that might have been his spot, at least for the short term, until maybe they can find a more suitable replacement. Right now, I think he's lost that opportunity. And I think right now, I think it's going to go to Myers. Now, the one thing that you have to also factor in with Myers is, can the Canucks get him to, I guess, be a little bit more defensively cautious or conscience. Why am I having trouble with that word today? He's just got to be able to make sure that he knows that when he's on the ice with Quinn Hughes, he can't be the guy who makes the step into the zone to try and make a quick scoring chance. He has to know that the guy across the ice from him is much better at that and is going to have a much faster, quicker lane to that net than he is. It's very much you can basically be the guy who in basketball games who like the Lakers guy whose job is to just pass the ball to LeBron. That's all you got to do. And you just rack up the assists the entire time because he's just going to score. You just throw it to him. That's what Tyler Myers could become, is just the guy who's like, all right, every time I get the puck, it's going right to Quinn Hughes or Elias Pettersson, and I'm going to get 50 assists a year. If he can do that, that's a perfect fit.
Yeah, it's like that Will Ferrell movie. Pass it to the Italians. Instead, pass it to Quinn Hughes and Elias Pettersson. That should be the game plan for Tyler Myers when he's on, if he does play that first pairing, right?
Yeah, yes, exactly. I don't know enough about Tucker Pullman, I guess, to necessarily warrant to see if he's like a long-term fit there.
Well, he
I
looks
do
like a
think he's
pretty
a little
decent
slow.
skater, so at least he can keep up with Quinn Hughes.
He can keep up a bit. I think I'd like to see what his like, and I guess yeah, like we talked about it last episode. His shot's not the best, but if he's playing with Quinn Hughes, it doesn't need to be. You don't need to be a great shooter. You just need to be able to move the puck. It does come down to who's going to be the best facilitator, who is willing to say put their own goal scoring expectations aside for the bet for instead of and moving the puck over to Hughes or to whoever the forwards are. Because if you can find that guy, who's willing to be that defensive back and be the safety net in case something goes wrong, that's what you're looking for. Maybe Pullman's that guy. Maybe it's worth trying the thing you don't know versus what you've already tried with Myers. But it's going to be whoever Hughes gets paired with. That's going to be the most interesting pair just in the early going, because I think the other spots are a little bit more you can fit guys wherever. Hughes, you need an absolutely bona fide partner for. You need to have a guy who can fit there long term.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people pencil in Tucker Pullman for that second pairing with OEL at the beginning of training camp, and they did play a lot together. But last night him playing with Quinn Hughes, him being Tucker Pullman, it was just interesting to me because maybe that's a new pairing. But I still think Tucker Pullman, is going to be playing with OEL. I think a dark horse in this whole situation is Brad Hunt. All right, I think a lot of people expect him to be a depth signing for Abbotsford when he signed, but this guy has not played in the AHL since 2017. Go look at his hockey DB. He has not played in the AHL since 2017, so it's not automatic. This guy is going to be sent down and be playing a ton of minutes for Abbotsford, right? You could be that seventh defenseman in the Canucks in the press box. So I think, if Travis Green gets over his phobia of having, defensemen playing on the wrong side, he likes to have left-handed defensemen on the left side, right-handed defensemen on the right side. If he gets over his phobia of, playing left-handed defensemen on the right side, then maybe Brad Hunt slots into one of these right side roles, right? Like I would much rather prefer Brad Hunt on his offside on the right side with Jack Rathbone than say Luke Schenn at this point.
Yeah, I would honestly go as far to say that I would not mind him with Quinn Hughes for a time. Like
you want him to play top pairing minutes.
Not long term. It's just like we said with Schenn, right? Where it's fine for a while, but if you're playing them 82 games that way, then you have a bigger problem on your hands than that. The way I look from what I've seen from Brad Hunt in the preseason, I've seen a guy who is very steady. He's not a big risk taker, and he's not a big high risk taker, I should say. He is very good at finding the very low risk plays and making them happen. Like there was the one play in the Calgary game that I can't forget, where he had the puck at his blue line. Again, not a guy who's normally known for scoring prowess, and he saw the lane to the net and he took it, and he made a good scoring chance out of it. He strikes me as a good fit as the safety net guy, as the guy who can sit back and let Quinn Hughes do his thing, but will take his opportunity if a good one pops up. If you absolutely have to take that chance. The problem, of course, being that again, he's a left defenseman. And he's a lefty defenseman, and yeah, Travis Green doesn't like to play guys on their off wing. If he's willing to let that go, I could see a scenario where maybe Hughes and Hunt start together for a bit and see how that goes. Just because again, I like the stay-at-home aspect. But if that's not something they want to do, but if they're willing to make that move, Jack Rathbone is a good fit. It's the younger guy playing with the steady defensive defenseman. That makes a whole lot of sense. And I think as a third pairing, Rathbone and Hunt would be a very good choice.
Yeah, and for the depth guys like Joel Levy and I thought Massive Bowie played okay last night. I think both those guys are on the outside looking in at this point, right? Like it's gonna take injuries for either Olio Levy or Massive Bowie to get into the top six.
It's weird because I think I would have agreed with you. Like earlier in the preseason or like right at the start of training camp. But if you remember, we did the whole who's gonna leave first, like who's probably on the first bus back to Abbotsford. We had Bowie on that list, and he's still here and playing very well. So I honestly think he might have.
He's like a bad cold. Can't get rid of him.
He's a bad cold, but he's a good one, but somehow also a good cold because he's doing well. Like, he's actually looked surprisingly good. Like, there was the one play I think he set up. What was it? He set up, I think, Nick Pettersson a few games ago where he made that great pass. Like, he looked he was surprisingly good of late. Him and Kyle Burrows are two guys who have been actually, like, I would say, exceeding expectations for what they bring to the table. And right now, I'm kind of looking at, like, I think Oliualevi is the most in trouble, not just because of he hasn't had a good training camp, but also the left side defense is clearly has a set good four. Like, there's a solid four options there. With the right side, I do see a scenario where potentially Luke Shen finds his way down to Abbotsford, and maybe you keep Burrows and Bowie for a longer term stay, because right now it kind of looks like those two are getting a lot more ice time and a lot more opportunities than I think either of us expected coming into training camp and the preseason. So for them to still be here and actually doing okay, they might actually be one of like the surprise opening night choices for Travis Green.
Yeah, and of course, last night it was also Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes' first preseason games for the Vancouver Canucks. Much anticipated preseason debuts for Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes. And we're going to talk about that in just a moment. But first, I want to talk to you about Built Bar. Did you know that Built Bar has so many delicious flavors? There's something truly for everyone. When you talk to a Built Bar fan, they're definitely passionate about their favorite flavors. I personally like the orange, strawberry, coconut, cherry barcia. They got a good mix of classic flavors and more exotic flavors for you. If you haven't tried all the flavors, guess what? You can get a mix box where you'll get 2 of each of the 9 flavors. And not only are Built Bar flavors the best tasting, but they're very healthy for you. They have 17 to 18 grams of protein, only 4 to 5 grams of sugar. They're all amazing flavors. They're all tasty, and they're all very healthy for you. Go to built.com and use promo code LOCK15, and you'll get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCK15 for 50% off at built.com.
This episode is also brought to you by BetOnline.ag. We're back and better than ever. All eyes are on the gridiron as teams are back for another football season. And as always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all the pro and college football action this season. With a new updated site and interface, even more odds, props, and contests, BetOnline continues to be the number one source for everything football. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Don't forget to use our promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus. From football, basketball, boxing, hockey, right to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts.
Okay, so last night was Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes' first preseason games, and I think for the most part they played pretty well. I don't think they looked like they missed a beat. Obviously, Quinn Hughes took that early penalty that led to eventually, after the Zach McEwen penalty, led to the Oilers 5-on-3. Maybe a bit of a preseason rust there with the penalty, but he didn't end up scoring a goal. So it's hard to when you score a goal, even if you take a penalty, in my opinion, it's hard to fault that. It's you can look past that. Especially it was a nice goal too, right off the point, bomb from the point. Great to see Quinn Hughes' shot still at the bomb from the point.
Did you not miss those goals? Yeah. I sure did. I sure did.
Yeah, it was tough watching, some of these other defensemen try and shoot from the point in the preseason. Yeah. Well, you know what? They're okay, but they're not Quinn Hughes good. And
they're not Quinn Hughes good. I've gotten to the point with the Canucks, especially the Canucks. I feel like they're a team that leans far too heavily on we're going to pass it back to the defenseman and try and shoot through the sea of skates in front. And I feel like there's a whole zone in front, like a whole zone out in front of the slot, like the high slot, that they just I feel like they never take a shot in. Like from at any point, it always has to be up there, weird deflection out in front, and hope it goes. Quinn Hughes is the only guy who can usually get away with that with regularity, and he does it well. Yeah, for his first game back, he looked very good. He had a goal. I mean, what do you expect? It's Quinn Hughes, right? Like I think, some of us expected a little bit of rust there. But for him to come out and play just, basically vintage Quinn Hughes for the most part, with the exception of that early penalty. Like that's what I think the biggest concern for most people was going in the time right now was. Like, it wasn't just about the contract getting done. It was about how long does this drag out and how does this affect his game? Because we've seen it before with some players where the contract extension talks go out for a little too long. They end up coming back and the season feels like a bit of a like it feels like they lost a year. Like because they literally sat out for
But again, I mentioned this on the podcast before. These guys are professionals. They're not coming to training camp to get in shape, right? They've been practicing on their own. They know what to do. They were practicing in Michigan when they're waiting for new contracts. So there was a bit of preseason rust, I think, with the early penalty. But other than that, Quinn Hughes, like, it doesn't look like he's missed a beat.
Nope, it doesn't. And that means that's another like sigh of relief that everybody can take. Like, everyone can take a deep breath and be like, okay, we got them back. They're looking good. They're looking okay. I know Elias Pettersson was an interesting one because that's his first game back since March, I want to say, or April, like around there, prior to the COVID outbreak, for sure. And like you don't expect him necessarily to come in and set the world on fire immediately, considering how long it's been, the injury he dealt with, and all the contract stuff on top of that. Like, that's a whole lot of stress for one kid to take on all in 1 year, all in like less than a calendar year, frankly. And he looked good. He made the great play, and he made the great shot that Nick Patan deflected in front. Canucks, and the Canucks were in that game very whole lot to do with the fact that they had Hughes and Pettersson in that game. Like, I don't know about you, but if they're not in the lineup for that game, it's probably a bloodbath, right? Like, I don't think
they're losing by more than 2 goals. I'll say that.
Yeah,
they were directly involved in 2 goals.
They were directly involved with 2 goals, and in a lineup that didn't have Bo Horvat, that didn't have, I don't believe had Tanner Pearson or Nils Höglander in there. Or Brock Besser. Yeah, for sure. JT Miller, I don't think played either. Connor Garland didn't play. Like, a lot of your normal guys did not play. That game, they won solely based on the fact that Quinn Hughes and Elias Pettersson were in the lineup. Pettersson, who, by the way, we talked about in our last episode about captains. Somebody was wearing an A. Somebody had an A on there.
You called it.
I did. It might be just a preseason thing because, again, Horvat wasn't playing, so they didn't have a regular captain on the ice. But I don't think Travis Green takes that, like, even a preseason assistant captain assignment lightly. I think that's a little bit of a tip in the cap of, hey, this is a leader. This is a guy you listen to in our locker room if you're a young guy. So, hey, maybe he's gonna get that permanently. We'll see.
I think he's got a good shot, Lachlan. I think he's got a good shot. And you know what? I'd be kicking myself if we didn't talk about quickly our boy Nick Patan scoring. Look, he's gonna make
your boy.
Okay, more my boy Nick Patan. He's gonna be he's gonna be one of the 12 forwards to start the season. I think that's pretty clear right now. He scored a couple of goals in the preseason. They're trying him out on the penalty kill, so they clearly have some idea for what they want him to do. If he does make the roster, I think he's got a good shot. I think he's got a very good shot to make the team.
So let me ask you this then. Okay. If you believe that he's making the team, he's one of the 12 forwards. That's we're not even just talking about on the roster in the press box. You think opening night roster, he's playing against Edmonton in Edmonton. Okay. Then I'll ask you this. Where are you putting him in this group, considering we've talked about the top 9 and how relatively set that group looks? Like, are you putting him in that 4th line, or are you sending him elsewhere? Are you going to take a big risk here? Are you sending him elsewhere in that lineup?
I think he's going to play 4th line, and he's going to get some second power play time as well. That's my official prediction. I don't know about the penalty kill thing. I don't think that sticks, but I think 4th line, second power play.
But do you not have to be like a decent penalty killer to play 4th line? Like, because that kind of feels like that, especially considering what we've seen.
Well, no, not if it looks
lately,
like
that feels important.
Di Giuseppe's making the team, right? So he's going to be one of the penalty killers.
Giuseppe,
Looks like Matthew
Dowling,
Highmore's going to be, Dowling, Highmore. They're going to be making the team as well. So I think,
Well,
those guys are going to be penalty killing.
Well, that's the key. Well, and that's the key, right? Because like right now, because I think like I said, I think Dowling's making the team. I think he's your fourth center because Patan's a winger. Or is Patana center? Sorry, is he?
He's going to play the wing.
He's gonna play wing. Okay, so that means it's down to him. It's Di Giuseppe, it's Highmore and Patan because you already know the nine in front. So right now the theory is, I guess, essentially that you have to beat out, if Patan wants to make the team, he has to beat out Highmore, or I think is his best shot. Like Di Giuseppe's got a really good, I think is very
He's
much
got a spot locked up.
Pretty as locked up as it can be, right? Like because of how his penalty killing prowess and how he's a very good defensive guy. That's so if Patan wants to make the team, he's gonna have to beat out Highmore to do it. And so far, I would say if we're talking on points and goal and total and like total offensive contribution, then yeah, Patan should make it over Highmore. I think the problem is that you only got that one spot left, and if you need the penalty killing the way the Canucks do, Batan's got to show he can kill some penalties.
He looks so good in preseason. He scored in preseason.
I know, but there's no room for him for scorers in the top 3, so in the top 6. So he's gotta make it work elsewhere. He's gotta go to Travis Green and practice today, if they've got practice, or tomorrow, and go, Coach, I want to try penalty kill. Give me a penalty.
No, here's what you tell him. Look, Nick Bondi of Locked On Canucks is guaranteeing that I'm going to be on the opening night roster. Let's make it happen. That's what he's got to say.
I thought you were gonna be like, oh, he should go up to the coach and be like, look, this Tanner Pearson guy, he's a scrub, he's old news.
Maybe you should do that. Maybe you should do that too.
I'm Nick Primetime Patan.
I like that, Primetime Patan.
Like I want to be in the lineup now. Like that's my team now.
Yeah, so we've got 2 ideas for merch now: Nick Patan Stan and Primetime Patan. Both Nick Patan shirts. We can be the Canucks podcast that just corners the market on Nick Patan merch.
You're gonna open like a clothing store on like Commercial or like Robson or something, like right in like the prime shopping district. And it's just gonna be Patan merch. Like it's just gonna be all Patan stuff all the time. Do you have you gotta find your niche. Get out. Like
yeah, just Patan. So do you have any Elias Pettersson jersey? No, just Nick Patan. Sorry.
Security, come escort this person out of here. Like
yeah. So no, Nick Patan I think has a good shot of making this roster, but still a lot of decisions to make for Travis Green and the coaching staff. And I think this Saturday game against the Edmonton Oilers, we're going to see pretty close to what the opening night lineup is going to be for the Vancouver Canucks. So that'll be interesting to see. But that has it for today's episode of Locked On Canucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Once again, thank you for making Locked On Canucks your first listen of the day. Just a little programming update. We will be taking Thanksgiving off, so no episode on Monday on Canadian Thanksgiving. Enjoy some turkey with your family. Enjoy some quality time with your family. We'll be back on Tuesday with our regularly scheduled programming. And before you go anywhere, make sure your second listen of the day is Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Host Scott Collin leans on his decades of fantasy hockey insight and experience every day to help you be the expert of your fantasy league. It's free and available on all platforms. Once again, this is Locked On Canucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for listening.